All right, kids, buckle up. It's going to be an interesting one today. I got into work and I had some people talking to me about what's going on with China and tariffs. If you're here to talk about knives or to listen and learn about knives, today is not a knife thing. It's going to only have relevance to how what's going on in the world, China and the United States, could affect knife prices. Maybe we can hit on that a little bit. I might towards the end, but I wanted to talk about, really why America works. And I wanted to offer just my perspective, just one goon's perspective on kind of what's happening and how I think it's going to play out. And you guys, as time goes by, many of you will see that I've been really right about a lot of stuff. And people have said all kinds of crazy things to me, and I've gotten all kinds of hate about it. And over time, they kind of zip their pants up and pull it back in. They reel it in a little bit because they go, oh shit, that fucker ended up being right again. I wanted to talk about a little bit about why America works. I want to juxtapose that a little bit with what's going on in China and why this is an existential thing for them and it's not so much for us. I just want to offer a little perspective because I know everybody's rattled and the news people are rattled because they hate Trump and then even people who like Trump, they're a little rattled because financial people are conservative types. Financial people don't generally pull wheelies on their motorcycle. These are not air show pilots. They're generally not raw entrepreneurs. Your raw entrepreneurs like Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary, I think his name is. That guy, if you see his optimism, it's because he's a real capitalist. He's an entrepreneur. So a guy like him or a guy like me or a guy like a lot of people who start companies, we're really comfortable with this mayhem because this is where great things happen. The status quo is for wonks. The status quo is for people who are retiring next week. My advice to you, if you're retiring in the next 6 months, pause. Don't bail just yet. So I want to talk about a couple of things. I hear people all the time say the Chinese are playing three-dimensional chess or Go, and the United States is playing checkers. And I think that's right if you look at our governments up until just a couple months ago. I think if you look at the people, here's what's fascinating about our system and America and capitalism. And this is the cornerstone of my argument. Human beings here in the United States, we made this claim, this 18th century claim that we were endowed with inalienable human rights from the Creator. And it makes us valuable to our nation. And our nation gets its power gifted collectively from us because we are the source of the power. Our nation is not here to benefit from us. It's here to provide a collective safety and a matrix of rules by which we can become our best version of ourselves. If we look at communism and collectivism, and you see what's going on in China and what we saw go on in Russia, the Soviet Union, and the collapse of it, and all of us who lived through that. Those of you who are younger don't remember this, but the biggest communist nation in the world collapsed. And we watched it happen in real time and turn into, 20 little satellite countries. The thing with collectivism is it values the group over the individual. That sounds really good if you're a liberal or if you're a lefty. But whenever you value the group over the individual, And a lot of that sounds good and it seems like good ideas, but here's the problem. It's one person making the decision or a small group of people. There are about 50 great minds in China who are basically steering the entire nation. It is not the market steering that nation. So in general, that's the differentiating thing between us and these socialist countries who've for the last 250 years run at us, these communist countries who run at us. It drives them crazy because we value the individual's maximization. We value the individual's optimization. We value the individual's self-expression. Now, it creates a lot of pain and grief for us because a bunch of self-individuals can turn into a country full of narcissists, which social media has helped happen. But what you get out of that, think of how many Russian companies you find interesting. Think of how many Russian thought leaders you find interesting. Think of how many Russian technology companies you participate in. Think of how many Russian anything. Now let's ask the same question of China. How many great Chinese companies are you really interested in? There are some great Chinese companies who've modeled American companies. They've made their money here. They have big offices here. They litigate here. They have corporate offices here, and they interact with our stock market principally. Huawei. There's a few companies, telecom companies. There's some interesting Chinese technology happening, but a lot of it, it's ripped off IP, it's copied, it's knocked off. And we're such horrors to make every dollar that as we engage in China, the government sets the rules there that you have to have technology transfer to do business there. You know, they didn't start making electric cars until Elon Musk walked in there and kind of showed them how to do it. And then all of a sudden they're off and running with it. That's what they do. You have a country full of engineers. Now, I've worked with a lot of engineers. And I've got a really good engineer right now in my company. But engineers are actually not the most creative people. Architects are way more creative than engineers. Engineers are very task-oriented. So people will say, oh, when I want to get a bunch of engineers in China together, I call a meeting, 1,000 engineers show up. If I want to get an engineering meeting in the United States, you can't get anybody to show up. Well, you know, a lot of what engineers do is going to be tasked out to AI because it's not that creative. It is problem solving for a creative person's mission. And then the engineer says, oh, you want to get that done? Oh, okay, I can kind of connect those dots. But engineers are not out there creating the world. They are out there building solutions that entrepreneurs a lot of times come up with. Tons of exceptions to the rule. But my point is, you put 1,000 engineers in a room and put 10 entrepreneurs in the room with 10 engineers, and I put my money on the 20 people over the 1,000 engineers. Because entrepreneurialism, necessity being the mother of invention, is an old wisdom, and it's part of our collective, and it's really, really powerful. Why do I have so much faith in our system? Partly because we're all in on it. And there is collective wisdom. If you've ever done a trivia night, I do trivia on Thursdays with some of my friends and family members, and they have a 6-person rule in this league that I'm in. No more than 6 people on a team, because when you have 8 people on a team, you have 30% more brain power, and it's almost impossible to beat that. So if you have a team of 6 and you go up against a team of 12, they have twice as much overlapping and individual mesh of exposure to the universe and collective memory and collective knowledge. So when you have one supreme leader who doesn't even have to do elections anymore, like Xi Jinping, and you have one Politburo of 50 commie families, you have a very, very, very small cadre of brains. When you have the free market of capitalism, you have millions and millions of brains. And we're not all exchanging our thoughts. It's where we put our money. We put our money where we think it's going to do well. So in this market, the consumer, one of the things they always, why do you think they look at the consumer index of purchasing, consumer confidence? Whenever you hear the consumer these are generally people beyond just investors. These are the people who buy stuff in the United States. Knowing the collective buying is a wisdom that outpaces computer models and the stock market. It's smarter than every investment firm on Wall Street. It's smarter than every investment firm in China. The collective hive's choices on purchasing. I read an article about how the purchasing of certain fruits could determine bad weather. And people were baffled by it. Well, there's something about us that craves certain things when barometric pressures change. There is a wisdom in the marketplace with everybody getting a little say that drives the market in a very, very intelligent and very hard to reckon way. They've been using supercomputers and think tanks and insider trading to try and outguess the market for, since its inception. They can't do it because the market is wise and it's radical and it's fickle and it's changing. And what China doesn't have while they're playing Go is they have 50 or 60 minds steering their entire mechanism over there. So there are periods when they're getting it right and they can change really quickly because they only have to get 50 people on board. Here, you got to get everything on board. The market's got to be on board. It's a slow moving change. But there is strength in the hive thought. The market has an uncanny wisdom to it. Yes, there are pressures. Yes, there's weighted bias. But our market's only bridled. It's saddled. It's not broken. It's not controlled. Our market's not controlled. The Chinese market is controlled. And they were led into the kind of world market. And it was probationary. And as soon as they got in, they've kind of started on this factory to the world road that they've been on. People say they're the economy that drives the world now. They're not. Because they're not the consumers. The consumers control the market. Greg Medford at Medford Knife doesn't control the knife market. The knife buyers do. You guys do. I only get to reap the benefits if I happen to be right. Or if I happen to touch on something that resonates with the market. But if I don't, I'm dead in the water. That's on me. But the Chinese economy, it's manufacturing based, but it's not like our old manufacturing economy. Our manufacturing economy made stuff for us, the consumers. And we exported some of that greatness around the world, and there was money made off of it. It was wealth created. The Chinese, they've got multiple layers of problems right now. What they did was the great Chinese success was all based on real estate in China. In most of the big cities in China, they have a 25-to-1 cost to income ratio to own a home. Because of that, family heads, young men are not able to afford a house because if you make $100,000, your house costs $2.5 million to live in any big city in China where all the jobs are. Only place you could own a house is out in the rural where the farms are, but there's no job there. So they've created a downward pressure on their number one asset, which is their people. China's the slaves to the world, actually. If you're getting stuff from China, you're getting stuff from a slave class. Yes, they're paid, but see how they live. They live in these big tenement buildings. They're required to. They stack them 3 or 4 deep. They work incessantly. They're told when they're allowed to leave. They have to live there. They're told where they work. It's kind of a slave class. And they get paid. They live in a company housing. They get paid. And so what's happened is they've built this economy of manufacturing, but it's a partial economy because it's not a consumption. If China was so wealthy they were consuming the world's goods, they would be driving the world's economy. Does that sound like anybody you know? That's us. From 250 years of working and being creative and building and saving and spending and doing the right thing and building allies and winning wars and fighting for what's good, as screwed as it is from time to time, and trying to get it right. For 250 years, we have piled up the win. It's the win of all time. I'm not even arrogant about it. I'm like, Jesus, how lucky. So the Chinese have built very quickly a manufacturing class of people who can't afford to live in the major cities they live in. Why? It's because Xi Jinping and a few guys can't see what the unbridled real estate market's going to do. The market sees that, but the market's not in play in China. It's not a free market. It's a led market. It's a controlled market. It's a communist market led by a few people. So what's going to happen here is over the next 75 years, China's going to go from being 1.4 billion people to being 700 million people. Their number one resource, they're going to cut in half. They're going to do it because they haven't managed, because they've been managing the real estate market and they've priced everybody out of capacity or ability to own a home. And when you do that, people stop having sex, and they stopped having families, and they stopped having kids. And that's what's going on in China. There is an impending collapse of population, and it is upon them. It's happening right now. They don't talk about this. They don't talk about how you leverage 25 to 1 on your income to buying ratio to own property in any major Chinese city. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about how many factories are shut down right now. They don't talk about how they've made their entire living off the theft of IP. You know, I finally heard this being discussed in the last 2 weeks. But the attack has been on small American companies all across this country who make interesting products like I do, like many thousands of other companies do. And what happens is when you hit a certain number or a certain amount of searches, the state in China, they have people who just track products. And when it hits a certain amount of searches or dollars, it goes into their list of build it. And they send an order out to the factory to make a copy of this. And I'll hear dummies or lefties or little kids with skinny jeans that smoke a lot of pot and think they have it all figured out with their communications degree from Berkeley. They'll say, oh, look at the capitalist who doesn't want competition. See, the deal is, just like a car manufacturer, Medford knife, an airplane company, name any company you can think of that offers a line of products. Most of us have a hit product, or two, or three. We may offer 50, but we only have a couple of hits. You know, Ford's had a couple of hits. The Bronco, the Mustang, the F-150. Can you name the other Ford models? I mean, only if you're a car guy. Only if you're a car guy. If you're not a car guy, you kind of, oh yeah, you just kind of hit the big three. Chevrolet, the Corvette, the Camaro, Silverado, the Suburban. They make a lot of vehicles, but you only get a few hits. They're like the core. You do a lot of your business with that core set of products. Well, it means you're risking, every company, like my company, I risk launching a new product. I risk a new product line. I risk doing things. You know, I tried the American Service Knife, got my teeth kicked in on that. Really cool product. We still offer it. You can still get it. It's just not a hit. It was out of sync. And then COVID happened, and, you know, it just had but that's the risk you take when you launch products. The Chinese don't take that risk. They let us, all of us entrepreneurs collectively, they let us shoulder that burden Then they knock off our best products and they dump them on the market through Alibaba and AliExpress and Temu. I forget the name of this small package situation they've had, but there's been a loophole. The loophole has been this. The Chinese companies now can market directly to Americans through social media and then send directly to us in small packages, and they don't get assessed for taxes, tariffs, import duties, and fees. Because of that, and that just ended, and I'm like, I can't even believe I've got a guy in the White House who's doing shit that's affecting me directly, and like everybody I know. Everybody I know is affected by this. I've got a friend who's got a plumbing company, manufactures plumbing stuff. And his stuff is knocked off, made, and sent here all the way from the other side of the world, cheaper than he can ship it. And I have the same thing. They will do a shitty version of it. They'll do a shitty version of the Praetorian that thousands and thousands of unsuspecting or non-knife obsessed lunatics, regular people, casual consumers are duped into thinking they have a Medford Praetorian. I've had so many of them in for returns, it's unbelievable. And they think they're buying a cool looking knife, and then some of them think they're getting a $1,200 knife for $60, dummies. But that's what's happened, and what they do is they'll destroy a marquee brand. A company like mine might survive. People, why'd you cancel the Praetorian? Well, I was getting knocked off so much it was denting me. I wanted to mess with them a little bit. Like, oh, Medford doesn't make that anymore when you're getting a knockoff. I wanted to let some stuff in inventory disappear, wanted to let the secondary market bounce, and then I want to come up with a new version. It's, the only way you can outpace copycats is to innovate and make new. It seems like that's a good idea, but, when you come up with something really good, it's super frustrating to have that product destroyed while it's in the middle of its life cycle. I spent all this money to build tooling and market and build awareness. And then in the middle of that, the Chinese dump 10,000 of those units, knockoffs, into the marketplace. What it does, when you dump all that in, it has a tendency to, a certain amount of people are like, oh, is that a real one or a fake one? And they don't buy, they move on to something else. Those things affect the market a lot, you guys. They put pressures. When everything's right, it all barely works. When everything's perfect, it all just works enough. But steal 10% off the top, take 10% of business away, take 10% of profit away. All of a sudden you're like, oh shit, what just happened? And you can feel it when it happens. I know when a product's being knocked off before the text messages start showing up. Because I'm tracking the sales and I see I know what a sales curve looks like. I know what the arc looks like of life of product, and I see it go and a big notch in it. And I go, oh, on this day they dumped something into the market, and then you look at it, it's fucking obvious. You can just see it. Back to my America. Back to our America. Yes, it's a mess. Yes, it's messy. Yes, sometimes it's awful and counterproductive. But out of it, out of all of this mess, you get an Elon Musk, you get a Howard Hughes, you get a Carnegie, you get a Mellon, you get a Rothschild, you get a U.S. Steel, you get a Steve Jobs. You get a Bill Gates, whether or not you like him, that's fine. You get a Paul Allen. You get a Mark Zuckerberg. You get a Dana White. Out of this place comes so much cultural excellence, human excellence, capitalist excellence, business excellence, technology excellence, and innovation. It is, list 10 companies in Europe you want to invest in. List 10 interesting modern thought leaders in Europe. List 10 of them from Asia, all of Asia. You can do it. You can do it if you sit down and think and really. But I can spout off 100 American innovators that are in the billionaire class that are wildly interesting. In China, when I look at it, it's a lot of it is their emerging market. A lot of it is folks who've replicated what's been done here. There's not a lot of original creativity to it. I know there's a lot going on. So you can look around and find a bunch, but they haven't changed the world with their creativity. They've changed the world with their cheap slave labor. This works because we're all in on it. This works because it values the individual. This works because at our cornerstone, humans are connected to God and we are not chattel. This works because at some level our government is responsible to us and we can unelect them. Communism fails and it always will. Everywhere it's been tried, it fails. It will fail in China also. Because China still has a market like we do. They're just not coupled to their market. Our market is coupled to our leadership. They're connected. They're heavily intertwined. But the market in China is not coupled. They have these wonderful sayings like, out of pain comes opportunity, or we can endure sacrifice. They have all these little phrases that the emperors of China have used for centuries to oppress their people and let them deal with collective starvation and failure. The Chinese are tough, hardworking, and resilient people. They have to be, because their government is so awful. Now, has it elevated everybody? Yes, but the market didn't elevate everyone. The government manipulated the market, and it's going to pay the price, because that which goes up comes down, and comes down hard. They value the collective over the individual. You know, it's hard to find a Jack Ma. They only get a few great ones over there because you got to niggle your way through the system. Commies have no value in God or his creations, and therefore you don't matter. Commies think it's okay to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Americans at our core believe every sperm is sacred, to quote Monty Python. We think every person is an amazing individual. I don't quite think so, but if that's your premise, everyone who is an amazing individual, they can really blossom and do amazing things. You know, at its core, the collective thinking of China and other communist countries, it is a single-minded collectiveness as opposed to individuals. And the collective is what's given the space to grow. And the collective is what's given the focus. And that single-mindedness doesn't allow the collective, the market, to get its say. If the Chinese market had its say and wasn't being manipulated, then the market, and it wasn't being totally controlled, the market would have adjusted their real estate prices. The market would have the market adjusts things when they get manipulated and they're out of control, like we have, and boom, it collapses. The market looks like, nope, not putting their money there. Nope, people can't afford it. Nope, that's fucking boom, and it collapses. That should have happened 3 years ago with the real estate market, and they're artificially propping it up to avoid the pain, because when it comes, it's going to be big. They're going to lose a lot of working capital. They're going to lose trillions of dollars in the readjustment of their real estate market. And the only way they can pay for things moving forward, because real estate money is kind of phony money, is manufacturing, because that's where you take raw materials and turn it into real wealth. I want you to imagine, let's imagine for a minute, a company that makes rubber duckies to go in your pool, in your tub. And they make 1 million ducks a year. They sell them for $5 a piece, so they're a $5 million company. And they've got $5 million company, they've got 50 employees. It's about right, 100 grand per employee, okay? And you've got 100 employees making whatever they make an hour, and their monthly payroll, oh, I don't know, $150,000 a month. And I want you to imagine that of that million people, a half stop buying the rubber ducks. Now, a rubber duck is something you might like in the tub, but you don't need it. But you like it. Your kids like it. Who can hold out longer? The 500,000 people who didn't buy the rubber ducks, or the company that has 150,000 a month in payroll? What do you think? It's just an economics question. Now, I'm asking you a hypothetical because a lot of you are kind of like thinking about it. Who can hold out longer? A country that is not a consuming country, it is a manufacturing country that generates its gross domestic product off of making stuff for other people and has trade imbalances with everyone, meaning it exports, it does not import and consume. It is not a user of this stuff. Who can hold out longer? Now, let's say it's not 100 employees or 50 employees. Let's say it's 100 million employees. And let's say half of your business, 20%, goes to the United States. And all of a sudden it costs twice as much. And half of those people stop buying. That's 10% right off the top in manufacturing that's not needed. I heard a third of boats and orders are turning back to China. 1/3. A third. So if we take 20% of their goods, which is their numbers, and a third of the boats are currently being turned around, I don't buy it. I think we buy a third to half of all Chinese goods. I think we buy a third. And I think the delta between 1/3 and 1/2, that remaining amount, I believe it is gray market goods they send to Cambodia, Vietnam, Indonesia. They relabel it. It is not made in China. It's made in China, shipped through their ports, and it says made in, and it comes to the United States, not from China. And I know that's a fact. I think half of Chinese goods are purchased by America. What do you think happens? Who can hold out longer before they're laying off employees, don't make their mortgage on the building? Now, at some level, every building has a mortgage. Even if the Chinese government gave it to you, somebody put the capital in it, it's being held up. Even if the Chinese government bought all your mills for you and they're owned by the state and you don't have machine payments, somebody's expecting money. Maybe you don't have machine payments. What you have is the tax that you pay them for the privilege of being in business for the state. And then the state tells you what stuff to make. Now, if you're killing it, they don't. But if you're a state-owned company like most are, they do tell you what to make. You tell them what you want to make, and then they agree or not agree. That's what happens. Who can hold out longer? 330 million of us not buying rubber ducks? Or all their employees over there with their ships stacked up in the harbor and all the rubber ducks piled up? I make a joke about rubber ducks because most of what we buy from China, we don't need. The consumer side, absolutely, David, can hold out longer. The consumer can hold out. If I don't have a new widget today, it's not going to affect my life that much. I wish I had it. I'll look around. I'll fix my old one. I'll borrow one from a neighbor. If I don't have some cheap plastic shit in my kitchen, I'm going to be okay. But those factories that make all that junk from China, even the good stuff from China, they are not going to be okay. So my advice to everybody is take a deep breath and step back. And for a change, Americans are always poked at for being fat. We're poked at for being lazy. We're poked at for not being thoughtful. We're poked at for wanting to vacation too much and not go to work and have everything easy and all be special and unique. We want everyone to change the rules for us, cook the meal our way. For once, step back and don't be a cunt. Step back and watch the chess game being played. Step back. How many of you watch chess? The answer is almost none of you. Chess is fascinating. And really, it's about watching the mind. And a lot of you like poker. Maybe some of you watch poker or play poker. It's a bit of a chess match. But it's a shadow of a chess. But a chess match is a real match. Chess is fascinating. And as we sit back and watch, there's a chess game going on. We've got a capitalist at the front. Whether you love him or hate him, it doesn't matter. He's there. He's making a collective decision as to whether or not we, the American consumer, in his game of, he's playing a game of chicken with the premier of China, with Xi Jinping. He's playing a game of chicken. And here's his chicken. How long can the American market hold off on Chinese, mostly junk? And how long can the Chinese manufacturing sector hold off on being unemployed? And Trump has made what I think is a wise and correct decision. We can hold out longer. Not only that, we're wealthier. Not only that, everything that we're all of a sudden out of that's an emergency, we'll figure out how to make it. Like we always have. And we do, and we will. The Chinese have one resource. People. They're selling people. They're selling you moments of life for cheap. If an iPhone is supposed to cost $1,800, because I bet if I've got any lefties or Democrats on here, and if you're conservative, you know, we're of similar mind, even though some of the things I say might shock you. A job is a trade-off of life, time for money. So for instance, if you're going to work 40 years, 40 hours a week, you make this much money, add it all up, divided by the hours work, we've decided that chunk of our life is worth this much money. And if an iPhone made in the United States would cost $1,800, and we're all obsessed with $1,100, we've decided a Chinaman's life is worth almost half as much as ours, then that's okay. It's okay to dirty up Chinese water. It's okay to dirty up Chinese air. It's okay to dirty up their environment with rare earth mineral mining. We've got a lot of rare earth minerals in this country, you guys. We don't need to get them from anybody. You just can't get a license to do it anywhere because nobody wants an open mine anymore. We're sitting on gold everywhere, and we've regulated ourselves out of access to it. That's why we're going to win. That's why I think the president's making a really wise move. There is no, people say, oh, he should have negotiated with China. How many years should you negotiate with China? How many years should you let them stall? How many years when they you know what they've done with all the money? The real estate has elevated the population in China. Do you know what the money from all the manufacturing's gone to? Their military. They're aging. Their new and now aging military, rapidly aging Chinese junk shit military, is what they've invested in. How much negotiating do you want to continue to do when you have 4 years to change the world? How long should you negotiate with a government that's been outlasting every American administration for 40 years and fucking with us hard for almost 30 now? At the government level, they're playing Go, and our government people have been playing checkers. So they'll let you have little micro wins, knowing that you're gone soon. The midterms are coming soon. This is coming soon. You'll be scared of this electorate soon. So we'll just get our way, bribe everybody in the process. And if some Chinese people finally get thrown in jail, which we don't even have the balls to do anymore, for being spies and for bribing people, so what? Americans, since they're capitalists at their core, we can just bribe them and get our way. That's what they've been doing, you guys. Eric Swalwell, who ran or was a part of the first impeachment of Donald Trump, had a female staffer who was Chinese that he was fucking who turned out to be a spy. That's real. Did he resign in shame? Nope. There's no shame. Apparently, there's no shame in California for fucking a Chinese spy while you're a U.S. congressman. You're impeaching the president on the trumped up, phony basis that he colluded with Russia. Speaking of stupid fucking voters, hey Canada, you know what? I'm gonna wait. I'll do a wake up call to Canada. I'm gonna do a wake up call to Canada maybe like next week. That'll stun people. The reason communism fails is because communism does not see the divine uniqueness of humans. Communism capitalizes on the fear of humans failing. And failure is the great gift of innovation. Failure has to be there. Failure is a motivator. So, they don't get to benefit. There are a bunch of Steve Jobs and Elon Musks walking around all over the planet. They're not just here in the United States. But why do we just almost exclusively have them in the United States? Why do you guys think that is? Why do you think the vast majority of international patents on new technology and ideas come from the United States? I don't know. You can figure it out. You think it's because we're smarter than everybody? No. Is it because we're more educated than everybody? No. It's because we're free to try something. We're free to see if we're unique enough to come up with a better way. We get a chance to hustle something to the free market. And the free market knows stuff that governments don't. I don't think governments would have ever picked SpaceX. I know they didn't. No government ever picked SpaceX. You know, governments don't pick. They generally don't pick great winners. So the biggest thing, and one of these things I fall back on, like how awful our government is, how corrupt our government is, the Chinese government is as well. So is the French government, so is the English government. Governments are inherently wildly corrupt. And the biggest thing we have going for us, running up against China, for instance, is that it's run by the morons in charge. The United States is arguably not run by the morons in charge. They're woefully insignificant. Evidenced by the fact when you see somebody come on that actually wants to take charge and get something done, fucking the whole world tilts. China's going to fail. People are their natural resource, not their intelligence, not their uniqueness, not their creativity, not their love for them, for their backs. Here in the United States, what separates us from the Europeans, what separates us from Canadians, Mexicans, Australians, Germans, South Africans, and everywhere else is that we were never liberated by anyone. We were never granted our freedom from a king that is no longer here. We never have become free from a dynasty that reigned for 800 years. We thumbed our nose at a superpower, the one of two or three of the first superpowers, the British, the empire on which the sun never set. We thumbed our nose at them and sent them packing. Maybe they didn't put their full game into it. I think they did. They sent their best at us, and we sent them away. And the argument was, we will be free because we are connected to the Creator. And that's the difference. We value our creativity more than our backs. Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about kind of what's going on in politics right now. This big play that everyone's obsessed on, these Chinese tariffs, these tariffs that we're really directing at China. And I think what we're going to see in the final analysis is we're going to see that as the consumer, we can hold out longer. As the more established, wealthier country, we can absolutely hold out longer. If my countrymen could find a way to not shit themselves because they can't go buy junk and support junky companies who make junky shit in a junky country that doesn't value its people as anything more than a commodity, I would ask my countrymen to want the same good things that we want for our workers, for the workers in China. We want the same clean air, the same clean water, the same work standards of safety, clean, safe workspace, a harmonious work-life balance, the ability for people to buy a home and raise children and enjoy life. I think we should want the same thing from the people who make our stuff. Or all you are is you've outsourced slavery. I'm tired of being lectured to by little faggots on Reddit. And I don't mean like this kind of, I just mean little fucking queer baits on Reddit, little twinky little fucking skinny jean punks, doughy people who have an XY chromosome, but they're real soft and feminine. I'm tired of being lectured to by men who have really strong convictions about a woman's right to choose abortion. I'm sick of all of them. And I don't care about them. Like, they're not manly in any sense of the word, and therefore their opinion lacks manly weight with me. I'm tired of a class of people criticizing, moralizing, and judging who have outsourced slavery for their cheap stuff. And so my words to you are fuck you. And for those of you who are part of the Great Awakening, don't buy stuff just because it's American. Buy it because it's great. And if it's not great, call up the American company and chew someone's ass out on the phone so they start pushing on their boss to make better stuff. Because American companies listen, and they speak English, and they adjust, and they tack to the market because we are all connected in the marketplace. Buy American because it is better. Buy American because when you do, your morality is reflected in your purchase. Buy American because you are being true to yourself. If you're buying all this Chinese stuff, you're a liar. You're a liar. I would love, this would be a really fun TV show. I want you to imagine we meet up some chubby, purple-haired heffalumps, or let's say some like really unhinged, effeminate males who are like at a pro-choice rally. I would love to be like, we should do a TV show called "Does Its Home match its head. And so we go to their house with them and we tour through their house. And we see their toaster oven or their air fryer made in China. We see this made in China. We see their shoes made in China. Their pants made in China. Their iPhone made in China. They're this made in China. They're that made in China. Everything's made in goddamn China. And they're going to lecture you on all of these rights and human rights and everything that trans and gays and women need because they're so oppressed in America. And they're liars. I have some Chinese shit in my house. I don't have a problem with it. I have a ton of really good American stuff. I have some Chinese stuff because sometimes you don't have an option. And it's stuff you need. Like, I kind of need a cell phone. That's not really optional for me. I'm trying to think of what else Chinese. I mean, I spent a lot of money to get American-made pots and pans. I spent a lot of money to get American-made silverware after Amy and I got divorced, and I had to kind of get my own stuff. I got Japanese plates made in the 1950s from a Greek diner. My refrigerator, you know. I got a Chinese. I'm sure my refrigerator, at least the internal technological part of it's made in China. Oh, Samsung. That's a good point. Recreational. I love it. I'm sure some of my T-shirts were sewn in China. Like I don't have a hatred towards them, but I'm also not lecturing people on human rights in the United States while I'm using slaves to make my shit. I'm like, well, I know I'm gonna get some shit made by semi-slaves. You know, what else am I gonna do? I need this, I need that. I don't lecture. I'm like, but my thing is buy American. As much as you can, as often as you can. People say, oh, it's really expensive. Yes, it is. You can't even buy an American microwave. You don't need one. A lot of stuff that's not made in the United States, you don't need. Refrigerators, that's a challenge. Not everybody can afford to go get a Sub-Zero. I get it. In conclusion, I would suggest everyone take a step back. Buy American as much as you can. It matters. It's mattered. I've been screaming about it for 15 years. I've been screaming about dirty, rotten, thieving Chinese shit for 15 years. I've been called every nasty name in the book because I call out an awful country, an awful government, treating its people awfully and stealing from everyone and everyone they do business with. And I've been called a racist in every way. And I'm okay with it. If that's being a racist, so be it. It's not, though. It's just saying the truth. And the truth is inconvenient. Do you know why Aristotle said that the most valuable and important trait of man is courage? Do you know why he said that? He said that because in ancient times, he said, how can that be? How is bravery? How is this? How is that? Why is courage the most important thing? And he said, because without it, there can be no truth. Now, logically, what we can divine from that is in ancient times, just like in modern times, telling the truth will get you excommunicated. It will get you crucified. It will get you kicked out of. It will get you banished. It will get you killed. It will get you divorced, left, alone, isolated. Telling the truth will get you all of that. Why do we know that? Because Aristotle said so. The most valuable trait of man is courage. For without it, there can be no truth. Because telling the truth takes courage, because it hurts telling the truth. I have been telling the truth about what's going on in China for 15 years. I have texted Don Jr. about it numerous times. He's been very gracious about not telling me to fuck off. But clearly somebody in the Trump organization is paying attention. If I didn't like Donald Trump or anything the administration did, I would have to take a moment and pause and watch what their initiative's doing with tariffs for American manufacturing, American self-reliance, and at least relying on our best good neighbor allies and not being heavily in bed with one of the last leading great evils on the planet. The Chinese Communist Party is a great evil. It is an oppressor of humans. Everybody, it's like Alice's restaurant. If one person does it, it's one thing. If two people do it, it's eyebrow raises. If 5 people do it now, 50 people a day do it, it's a movement. The movement's here. I've been talking about it. Other guys talk about it. I think the only other person I've heard in the knife business is as outspoken about it as I am is Ernie Emerson, maybe. I think he's the only other person who comes even close to how outspoken I've been about it. And he's done it in public, which is pretty awesome. So, have faith. Like the knuckles on that old man's hands in, what was that? That's a great movie that I like. Oh my God, with Russell Crowe. And it's the sailing movie. The Acheron is chasing them. Oh my God, it's one of my favorite movies. I just had the name on the tip of my tongue, and I forgot the name of the tongue. The old man in there, he's got his knuckles, and it says, he's got a tattoo on his knuckles. Hold fast. My advice to you all right now, hold fast. It's going to be okay. I wouldn't retire it. Master Commander, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot that. Thanks, Phil. Hold fast. It's going to be all right. Have a little faith. Watch what happens. Every bold, crazy thing that Donald Trump has said has turned out to be true. Even if it takes a year or two to figure it out, it's turned out to be true. This is a bold move. If you think he's an egomaniac, I'm not even going to disagree with you about that. He's an egomaniac who has one term and he's bet absolutely everything. He's bet absolutely everything, his legacy included, on this realignment of global economies, this realignment of allies. You know, Canada, if you want to be our ally, you can't keep taking from us. You can't. You can't take from us and be polite and think it's a great idea. If Canada's so great, why do they own so many houses down here? If Canada's so great, why is it when they get cancer or they need a transplant or anything serious has happened, they come down to the United States? Why is it they all live right on the border with the United States? Like 90% of Canada lives right on the border with the United States. Why? Why is it you guys keep electing cunts to run your country into the ground and oppress you? Globalist shitheels. If you're a Canadian and you don't want to be an American, you're out of your fucking mind. Because if we closed our border down, you guys would be Mexico with trees. I don't love Canada. I don't hate Canada. I don't love it. I'm fucking neutral. I could care less. I've never gotten anything that says made in Canada on it. Their fucking premier, the guy they just selected to be their guy, their prime minister, I don't know, his residence was in the United States, for fuck's sake. And you guys didn't elect your conservative because you connect him with Donald Trump. It's really bizarre. Fucking Canada. Europe, too. You know, we think Europe's our allies. They're not really our allies, you guys. They're not. They're adversarial as hell. Huge taxes and limitations on us doing business there. I've been detained in Germany bringing product into the country because I didn't pay taxes on it right. They're out of their fucking minds over there. And the whole continent is depressed financially. Bunch of broke dicks. And they keep electing the same globalist cabal of shitheels. One of the most interesting things I've seen since Trump got reelected, was J.D. Vance going to Europe and saying, hey, what do you guys stand for? We don't get it. Because you're absolutely wildly out of touch with your populace. 70% don't want this, yet you do it. 70% don't want that, but you do it. 70% want this, but you do it. Same with Canada. They elect these globalist, polite shitheels who don't do anything for their population or anything that their populations approve of. Europe didn't want its countries overrun by Middle Eastern populations, and their governments went for that. They're globalist shitheels. I don't know, you guys. It's gonna be all right. I'm gonna keep making knives. You guys keep buying knives. We're gonna talk some politics and have some fun. I will show you pictures of the black card probably next week. I jumped the gun a little bit this past week. I thought I was going to get something a little more further along through engineering. I didn't quite. We had some other projects come up. And I have a new announcement about my Main Street Knife Company, which I think you guys are going to really dig. Go over if you can, like or subscribe if you're not already a member. If you like us, if you subscribe, if you smash the like button, you'll get a little notification when I'm going to do my little lives. Also, if you go to Medford Knife Official, that's my page on Facebook. That's my group on Facebook. If you go in there, you can answer a couple of Medford Knife questions and get in there. And I usually drop info about new models and new stuff before I put it here on YouTube. So anybody who wants to be in the know can go find it there. Anyways, that's Medford Knife Official over on Facebook. Smash the like button down at the bottom. And just so you guys know, Main Street, I changed the name of Main Street. It has a new name. And I'm going to let everybody know on Monday when I have the logo. The logo's done, but when I have the logo printed up, you can all see it. It's pretty cool. All right, I'm going to get out of here. You guys have a great weekend. And fucking hold fast, bitches.